Hey guys, just filmed this look using Temptu's airbrush system. I thought it would be a good time to show you all how it works, specifically how I use it on my clients, and then the whole kind of method and technique that I use step by step to achieve a very lightweight, flawless, skin-like finish. Yeah, this is the look that I did. If you guys are interested in watching, please stay tuned. We will get right into it. If you are new to my channel, make sure to subscribe so that you can get all the tips, tricks, and hacks. But for this video, I decided to share how to use the Temptu Airbrush makeup system. And so this has been my staple in my bridal kit for the last 8 years. And I love this thing. I love this thing. My brides love this thing. A lot of my clients that have done airbrush, even just for special occasions, love it. It's super lightweight. It lasts so much longer than traditional foundation. It doesn't look cakey. It doesn't feel like you're wearing a ton of makeup. It still looks a lot like skin. It's super flawless in pictures. Did I say water resistant already? Cryo resistant. It's just amazing. So for those of you that have maybe a special occasion coming up, are looking to incorporate airbrush into your kit or as an offering for a makeup application, I would definitely recommend the Temptu airbrush system. This is the Airpod system. And again, I've had this exact same machine for the last 8 or so years. It has been a trooper. I haven't had to replace any parts. Obviously with, you know, making sure that you keep it safe and secured in travel and all those things really helps to allow for the longevity of the machine itself. But yeah, we're just going to be getting into how to apply airbrush makeup with the use of other makeups. I personally don't usually do like the eyeshadows with airbrush or the blush with airbrush, just because it requires different pods and has different finishes, and I tend to like to use powders to set makeup anyway. A multitude of reasons, right? But we'll be getting into all of the details, so if you're interested in learning a little bit more about this specific airbrush system and how to apply it on the skin, the best method of application as far as products, then keep on watching. So I have been using for the last 8 years the Temptu airbrush system, and this is the Airpod attachment. So the Airpod would slide directly into this device here. So you can control the amount of, or the pressure of the spray using the little nozzle here. I pretty much keep mine consistent. And then it has the power adapter on the back, and then the hose attachment that goes to the actual sprayer tool. To attach the actual pod, we are going to first give it a good shake and really get that color mixed in. And there is a little nub here that you'll need to open up, and then a few pulls of this lever here just to get the product ready for dispension. And then we're just going to slide that in until you hear the click, and this little button here should pop out once it's fully inserted. So for my skin tone, I'm gonna mix a few colors, and I normally do this with every client just because rarely does anybody fall into one shade. So I'm going to be mixing Nude, which is 4W, as my lightest to kind of brighten up the center of the face. And then I'm going to go in with 7W, which is Desert, and that'll be kind of my overall all over color. And then Toffee, which I'll use kind of around the perimeter just to bronze a little bit. Now this is how I organize the airbrush in my kit. I got this travel case from Amazon, and it allows you to customize the size of each compartment. So I face all of the airbrush pods downward so I can see the shade of every pod, and that way it allows me to quickly identify which shade matches my client's skin tone a lot faster. Before going in with the airbrush, there are a few things that I like to do, which is a little bit out of normal order, but I find that this is the way to get the best payoff from the airbrush and not have to disturb it after application. So I prime my face, or my client's face, first. Hydrating primer would be good. Just make sure that it doesn't have anything that will cause separation. Like too much oils is probably not the best combination with airbrush, but obviously you don't want your client's skin to be dry and patchy, so you want to make sure that their skin is well hydrated before going in with the airbrush. So after priming, I go in with the under eye concealer and any correction concealer that I need to do. My whole, I guess, idea of airbrush is that it shouldn't be heavy, right? We want to make any necessary corrections before going in with the airbrush so that we're applying the least amount needed. So you want to get all of your color corrections done and all of your little bits of concealer on spots that the client needs it onto the skin prior to the application of the airbrush. Okay, so we're going to start with the under eye concealer first. The one that I like to use is the Tarte Shape Tape contour concealer. I mix two colors. I use medium, which is closer to my skin tone, and then light medium just to kind of brighten. So I'm going to go in with that first. And this is a medium shade. The same way that you would do it as if you had foundation on already. And I don't normally do it like this if I were using traditional foundation, but airbrush foundation is a little bit different, and I'll tell you why in a second. So I'm just going to go in really just right where I want to brighten with that second tone. And we're going to blend that all out with a beauty blender. Once you've blended out your under eye concealer, I'm going to go in with a concealer to help diminish or hide these little spots that I have. Okay, so I think that's good enough for now. Obviously spot concealing is really just layering a little bit of thicker consistency, heavier coverage concealer over specific areas that you want to target and bring down that pigmentation or the redness, anything like that. If you have extreme redness like rosacea or you know, really active acne, you might want to use a green pigmented primer or color corrector concealer to help offset that redness. Okay, so now we're going to go in with the airbrush, and this is the exciting part, right? This is what we've all been waiting for. So again, we're starting with the lighter shade, which I'm going to really just focus on the center of the face to help brighten, but I'm not going to go too heavy. I'm really just going to kind of do a sheer coverage over the center of the face, and we can always build up coverage using the airbrush foundation. So we're going to turn on our machine using the power button on top. It's a little loud. And you'll feel air coming out, and you can do a little patch test on your hand and make sure that the tool is spraying product. So I feel and I see that it's spraying product, so I'm going to go ahead and about 6 inches away from my face, I'm going to start applying it in little circular motions. And really just concentrating on the center of the face. You can see that I just applied a very light layer with that lighter color only in the center of my face. And now we're going to go in with that 7W Desert color, which is more of my skin tone, that I'll bring all the way down the neck. So same deal, you're going to pull out the little plug, lift the lever a few times to get the fluid mixed in there, and then I'm going to plug this guy in. So for this one, I am going to go all over the face, and I do like to kind of protect the hairline because it will cause a little bit of like discoloration with the foundation. Okay, so you'll see that that shade was basically spot on with my skin tone, and that's what we want. So we want to kind of go three ways. The lighter shade that kind of brightens the center of the face, and then the shade that matches the skin tone or the tone of the body, especially if your client does spray tans or if their body is significantly darker or more tan than their face, which is the case a lot of the times. You're going to want to match the spray tan to the rest of the body. So that brings me into the next shade, which is Toffee. And so, as I mentioned, the reason that I don't go in with concealer after applying the airbrush is because the airbrush, once it sets, it really doesn't budge. So you're not going to want, at least from my experience, I found that concealer doesn't blend very well over the airbrush because the airbrush is already kind of locked in and you're good to go. So you want to make sure that you apply the concealer first and really blend it into the skin and then go in with the airbrush. However, you can still kind of correct any fine lines before you set the under eyes, which we'll get into in a second. And then another useful tip, as soon as you're done using the pod, always, always, always close the cap, or else it will leak all over your makeup bag, which has happened to me multiple times. So now we're just gonna go in with this 8W Toffee color. Same deal, unplugging it, lifting the lever a few times, plugging it in, and going in. This we're just gonna focus on the perimeter of the face, jawline, down the neck. And the important thing to know about airbrush is that you shouldn't expect to see color shoot out at the client's face or at your face immediately. It's buildable and it applies it in a very sheer veil as you continue to go over the skin. So as you make multiple passes over the skin, you're applying a very sheer veil every single time. So another useful tip, once you've gotten the coverage that you're looking for, is just to go in without pulling on the lever, just with the air, and that'll help set the airbrush and help it dry. And that's especially useful for clients that have oily skin or are sweating while you're doing their makeup, just to kind of fan down and help reduce or eliminate separation before you set the makeup. Okay, so once we have finished with the airbrush, the under eye concealer is still moldable or correctable. So if you have any little creases or lines where the concealer has kind of settled into, you can still go in and correct those with a damp beauty blender or a sponge, and then just have the client continue to look up so that you can set that with a translucent powder and go in with the rest of the makeup. So we're just going to do that. I have my Laura Mercier. I'll go in here. So when I use airbrush foundation, you probably don't need to set the makeup, but I do, just because my brides and my clients are going to be wearing this makeup for such a long time. They're going to be kissing loved ones and, you know, just really wearing the makeup. So I just want to make sure that it doesn't go anywhere. So to do that, I just get a pressed powder and I kind of just go over the areas where they tend to get the most oily, because obviously the whole goal of airbrush is to maintain the look of skin. So you don't want your client to look cakey. They usually gravitate toward airbrush because the finish is so natural. Also because it wears so lightly, it lasts so long, it's water resistant, at least the Temptu one. And I'll show you an example at the end of this video of what it looks like when you actually splash water on your face over airbrush makeup. It beads up and it literally falls down and the makeup is still completely intact. It's really good for those with sensitive skin. It's a way more sanitary way of applying because you're not actually putting brushes and you know, applying it directly to the client's face. Some clients prefer that. However, I do still use other tools that will touch the face. So for example, the beauty sponges and the eyebrows or lipstick. I might use a lip pencil or a lip brush to apply it. Alright, so another reason that I don't go in with the airbrush for eyeshadows is because I can't get that lower lash line using the airbrush tool. It just does not have that very fine focus that I need. So I will still go in with brushes and get into those areas using the brushes that I need. And they do have different formulas for the airbrush. They have the Silk Sphere, which is a little bit more dewy. And then they have the Perfect Canvas, which is what I usually get, which is a little bit more matte natural finish. And for the airbrush, it's probably, I find that it's better to apply it before the eyes because it's more struggle to kind of shield the eyeshadow that's already been done, and especially if you've already applied lashes, and then to have to shield that from the airbrush while you're applying the airbrush all over, it just makes it a little bit harder for the makeup artist. So I'm gonna apply eyebrows off camera. And one thing to note with the airbrush, and you might want to tell you will want to tell your clients this, or you might want to pay attention to it if you're doing airbrush on yourself, is that the airbrush particles can get into the nose and cling onto nose hairs. So I always tell my clients after I finish their makeup to go into the bathroom, get a Q-tip and just kind of run it around their nostrils because I don't want them walking out with airbrush particles on their nose, like nostril hairs, because it shows. So once the face is set, you're done with the eyes, we're just gonna go in with the rest of the face. Personally, this is how I do it, the way that I would if I was doing traditional foundation. So I would take my bronzer and bronze the same areas that we kind of hit with that darkest shade of the airbrush, just to bring it out more. And then this also just helps to set the makeup. Get down the center of the nose, or the sides of the nose. I'm gonna go for a cream blush today just to bring the skin back to life, and we'll do that in two ways. I'll do it with a cream blush just to kind of bring some sheen to my face. And that is the second thing that I use to bring the skin back to life. And just have it look a little bit less matte, a little bit more dewy. That'll dry down. Okay guys, this is the final look. You can see it's super flawless, just looks really soft focus. You don't really see any caking happening, any creasing. It's really lightweight, and this is gonna last me for the rest of the day, easily into as long as I decide to wear it, without touching up, powdering, blotting, none of that. Alright guys, so I splashed water on my face, I let it drip down, and what I look for is that it doesn't cause streaks. So if you are wearing foundation, that is my kid, if you're wearing traditional foundation, you would get streaks across your blush, you get streaks anywhere where water passes, and I have no trace of streaks. Water still dripping down, but otherwise the makeup is still